Hello, welcome to Loremaster's Library, the show where we look into the darkest parts of your favorite tabletop games and examine what is hidden in the shadows. Today we are looking at another topic around since the beginnings of tabletop, Fiends. These outsiders have been among the enemies players have tried to slay since the beginning, with many of them taking inspiration from real-world mythologies. So let's go down the list and talk about the origins of these creatures. Gonna lean a little on the Pathfinder side today because, hey, they have the large list. But we will see if D&D has some interesting options on its own. First, let's knock the easy two out of the way. Devils and demons. Most of us here are likely descended from Judeo-Christian backgrounds or an area that has a heavy Judeo-Christian background. Unless we have international viewers, which, first, why are you wasting your time here with me, but hey, thanks for coming. Either way, demons are generic terms used for evil spirits in Judeo-Christian mythology, and are often used interchangeably with the word devil. When used together, often it is with one principal evil spirit being the devil, and all others under him demons. If you need more, probably just watch Russian television. One side note I can add is that these two are some of the main reasons tabletop was targeted by the Satanic Panic in the 80s, even though the devils and demons were the enemies. Apparently, fighting against evil is also against the ideals of book burners. Oh, I'm sorry. Parental rights advocates, or whatever they're pretending to be these days. Either way, for the second edition, devils became Tanari and demons Batezu, before being reverted back to their original names later on. Then there are daemons, the neutral evil for both D&D and Pathfinder. Though D&D still calls them Yogoloths, though they were daemons way back in 1E. However, the term daemon, unlike the other two, does not refer to creatures of evil. Daemons are deities in Greek mythology who personify aspects of nature, like Thanatos' death and Hypnos' sleep. But more telling is the legend of the Jewish king Solomon. It tells he tamed demons, angels, and nature spirits to build the great temple. In the Greek translation of these tales, the nature spirits are referred to as daemons, which puts daemons firmly in neutral, but also in the same realm as a majority of the Japanese kami that aren't the all-powerful sky ones, the many Native American deities, basically various lists from across the world of basic everyday spirits who keep the world around them going as personifications of nature. I'm not sure why the creators made the D&D daemons evil originally, but having these creatures as a crossroads between devils and demons has always been enjoyable, regardless of the name's origin. However, there's 4 big fiends in D&D from my own personal research. Again, my background's mostly Pathfinder, but next is Demodans. These creatures are named after Dodons, an object which is put up as a sacrifice if in payment for certain legal matters, most usually if the object itself was the cause of death in some way, shape, or form. Most of these old laws have been taken off the books, but a few states still have them buried deep in the laws that no one cares about anymore. However, what brought them to prominence is when the name Deodan was taken up by the villain in Jack Vance's The Dying Earth. Yes, the Jack Vance that Vancian magic is named after, with Dying Earth specifically being listed as an inspiration for D&D. Nothing further needs to be said where these fiends eventually came in at. But now that we've got those big 4 coming, but let us finish off with the Ds. Devils, demons, daemons, demodons, and now divs. These are creatures that exist in a special place in Persian mythology. Some theorize they were simply a Persian name for the wider concept of jinn in the Islamic world. Others have them as distinct creatures. Either way, divs, or more anciently deve, were giant-horned humanoid creatures. Some had martial skills, others had magic powers. They were once worshipped as deities, but around the time of Xerxes I, their shrines began being destroyed, and then seen as enemies of Zoroastrianism, a station they still retained when the religion changed to Islam. They were seen as similar to what Marids and Ifrit were, evil jinn. But as the other two have now moved into places of neutral elementals, the divs remain, at least in Pathfinder, to show how these creatures were, and in some places likely still are, feared across the Middle East. Now let's move on to a few minor names from D&D. First we have the Chitin. These are actually all unique monsters made by the makers of D&D, being the name of their chain devils since 2nd edition. When Paizo brought these creatures over, they split the chain devil and Chitin into two separate creatures, leading to these tortured souls becoming their own unique brand of fiend, though eventually being renamed Valstuck, cutting more ties with the original source material. No meaning behind either of the names, so let's look at their appearance and themes. Pathfinder's version draws heavily from Hellraiser and the Cenobites, including the famed Pinhead. These horror movie legends are creatures from hell who see torture as a form of enlightenment and seek to share it with the unfortunate main characters. And of course, the appearances of these creatures is just as varied as the forms and shapes that tabletop monsters they would inspire take. And one final minor one found in D&D, we have Rakshasa. The name Rakshasa means preservers. This might lead some to assume that they are defenders of the peace, but no. The first Rakshasa were born when the god Brahma took darkness upon himself, when he promised to protect all of creation. These creatures are man-eating forces of evil in Vedic traditions. Sometimes they are just another name for Asuras. Most times they are distinct from the hungry ghosts known as Yakshas. Often they are depicted with two fangs, the power to shapeshift, and sometimes the powers of flight and illusion. However, the specifics of what they are, outside of a malevolent enemy, is up to a variety of interpretations. The only certainty is that they are enemies to the righteous, whoever the righteous may be. Speaking of Asuras, these creatures are also from Vedic mythology. In the traditional 6 paths, they are a step up from humans and a step down from devas. In other regions of the world, they instead become translated as being titans, demigods, and anti-gods. Anti-gods is the most important for us today. Their consistent fighting with the deva is what gave rise to Paizo's version's hatred of all things god. That said, not all Asura were evil in the myths. There were the good Asura, led by the water deity Varuna, who referred to themselves as the, and I'm going to butcher this because I always do, Adityas. And we had the evil ones, led by the dragon Vritra, who refers to themselves as Danavas. Then we have the monsters, known as Kliptoth. The origins of this creature is Jewish mysticism, or Kabbalah. If you watch enough occult series or anime, you will hear of the Tree of Life, a concept started in Kabbalah, in which paths and spheres are representative of the whole that connects the divine, virtues, and the human psyche, often used in mythic ceremonies. The tree itself represents the universal order. However, clipped off are not part of the tree. Clipped off are the leaves that have fallen from the branches, the discarded parts of the order, the parts which drag humans away from the deity. This makes them the opposite of the Sephiroth, the very spears making up the tree, and are everything impure in the universe. Which, looking at Paz's designs for them, that pretty much checks out. And now the final one of the big things that Pathfinder had in 1E, we have the Oni. Oni are demonic creatures from Japanese mythology, being forces of destructive powers. In actuality, if you actually study the mythology as well as Shintoism, you see Oni and Kami are one and the same. Just that the Kami has gone out of control for one reason or another, and turned into a different, monstrous and destructive form. And because of this, Oni, in the traditional sense, do not have a singular form, but have had a more standardized look developed over the years. The red-skinned, horned, sometimes three-eyed versions. But spiritual origins aside, these creatures also appear in various stories, often as bands being hunted down by the hero, and with the Oni commonly originally being stand-ins for rebels and bandits, who the ruling power demonized. The more you know. However, there are a few more Fiends in Pathfinder that did not have as expanded looks at them in the early parts of 1E. So let's go through these two quickly. First is Sekil. Sekil is the Nahuatl word for fear, instead of being related to one specific creature. But the versions we have in Pathfinder are connected to Mayan mythology. Their names and their home in Xibalba connecting them to the Mayan death gods. We do not have many Mayan myths outside of Popoval, but the death gods, sometimes taking on individual names like Khmer, Kizin, Hu Ahu, Kimi, Yamkmil, or the most famous one, Apuch, were evil deities of the underworld who forced the hero twins in their famous story to go through tough trials to reach them, and then also playing them in the ball game to death. There were at least two of them, unless the two were one person. You know how myths work. Curse those who burns culture. And one more fiend, which has made its way into a minor force in both games, is the Bogus. This is the legendary black dog, or ghost, or house elf from, or some combination of the three from northern England. Either way, they have large teeth and claws. Also known for being omens of death, sometimes leading all other dogs in the area in a funeral procession to warn of a coming death. Of course, like with most omens, people began fearing it itself being the cause of death, and stories of what looked like attacks from unknown animals started donating the creature's name. So, into the fiend/goblinoid category they went. A few last-minute additions before we close it off. We have fiends that have their origins in tabletop. The two big ones that I've seen are, and who have been able to reach the ranks of demigods themselves, are Orbs and Dove. And finally, we do have various other minor fiendish creatures who we could list the real-life origins for, like Hellhounds and Sebri are both descended from Cerberus from Greek mythology, as well as other hell gods from other parts of Europe. Nightmares take the name from the shadow horses of Germanic folklore, Ammit are named after the Egyptian demon of the same name, charged with eating the hearts of the evil dead, and various Eddas which would be too plentiful to list. There are so many non-demon residents of the Abyss. It's crazy. But anyway, that brings today's show to an end. But that does not bring an end to our look at Fiends. Next week, we'll be looking at the more specific demons, the origins of many of the Demon Lords' names, and their legends from our world. But that's for next week. For this week, that's it. Hope you all have a good time till then.